Welcome to Comfort and Growth, the podcast for people who are passionate about personal growth and productivity. And today we are so thrilled to have with us a very special guest. We have none other than Miss Xueling. Welcome. And she is, of course, our Senior Minister of State of National Development and Transport for Singapore. So welcome today to
Hi,
Comfort and
Crystal.
Growth.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you here because when I requested for you to come, it was really on the behalf of my many community members on Instagram as well as, on TikTok. And they wrote to me about you and how much they resonated with your speeches in, during the GE.
Oh, that's very kind.
I'm not sure if you may have or may not have seen, I did a little speech analysis of one of your...
Yes, you did. It's been sent to me several times. Thank you very much.
I hope you weren't
that.
offended, right?
No. Thank you very much. Yes, I learned from your sharings.
Oh, thank you. So it was actually when I made that piece of content, I must say unofficially, you're one of the most popular PAP ministers that we have because I do during GE. I did make, sort of many informal Instagram stories of the many candidates from every single party, and then your name kept on coming up. In fact, if I may share with you some of the stories that your constituents shared with me.
Oh.
One story was that you were, despite the fact that you were going to give birth a week later, you turned up at a celebration with 100 babies all laid out around you. Do you remember that?
Yes. Well, I'm in the ward in Punggol.
Yes.
And in the northeast, many young families, so many babies.
Yes.
So I'm delighted for the opportunity to be with young mothers. And then someone had this idea of having the babies, all come together. And because the babies were so young, and if we will have all the mothers come in, there might not be space for everyone.
Right.
So someone said, why don't we just lay out all the babies? I was
Hilarious.
like, all right, we'll do that.
I have never seen a photograph with so many babies laid out.
And they were very well behaved. No one cried.
Really? Nobody
Yes.
cried?
No one cried.
It must be your storytelling skills.
They're a bit too young, but it was really very fun.
Yeah. And another memory that one of your constituents shared with me was that she was deeply touched because even during the Zika virus, apparently you were quite heavily pregnant in 2016 and you were doing walkabouts, knocking on door to door, knocking on people's doors, assuring them that they were safe even with Zika virus. Do you remember that?
Yes, I was 7 months pregnant then.
Yes.
And this Zika thing really took us all by surprise.
Yes.
And to know that it impacts pregnant mummies and their soon-to-be newborns, I think was something that was really very scary.
Yeah.
So I was hearing stories about expectant mothers going around with a windbreaker, quilted,
Oh my God,
because
a quilted windbreaker.
yes, in Singapore's weather, because they were afraid of being stung by a Zika mosquito.
Oh my God.
And I thought that, we should take precautions, but what is the best way of doing so? So that's why I walked around and it just so happened that, you don't time your pregnancies for Zika, right? So it just so happened that I was quite pregnant at the time.
Yes.
But I thought that, maybe it's a way for me to share messages about what we can do together in order to better protect ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's very much part of your leadership style. One thing that people comment on over and over again is that, they respect you, they feel warm towards you because they see you actually walking the talk, if you will.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you feel that unyielding sort of man of few words kind of leadership style, which is, I think, quite common with the sort of more military style politician and, maybe the earlier generations?
Yes.
Do you feel that kind of has evolved in the latest kind of leadership styles that we see in the PAP and yourself?
Well, I think we are facing a variety of different circumstances.
Yes.
Right? And there's so much the government needs to do. Government needs to be promoting industries.
Yep.
It needs to be promoting education, healthcare.
Yep.
But at the same time, it needs to be protecting citizens, protecting livelihoods.
Yep.
So actually, you do need different folks for different roles.
Yes.
And so I think that perhaps we have people representatives who come from perhaps a uniformed background.
Yes.
They may have certain personal attributes. I'm not saying that all of them are cut from the same cloth,
Yes.
even though they might be wearing the same uniform. But they may have certain personal attributes that make it easier for them to be able to perhaps pass certain policies
Yes.
or carry it through.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I don't really want to stereotype or typecast. But I'm
course.
just saying that there is such a variety of roles that actually people from different backgrounds with different attributes can find something that they're strong in and actually translate that into action and words.
So you're saying that you're seeing more of a diversity of
Yes.
leadership styles
Yes,
coming forward.
yes.
Because I think your leadership style is very different from SM Tiochi here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. There are certain things that both of us, I think, strongly believe in, and that's protection.
Right.
I did spend quite some years at the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Yes.
And I was very focused on wanting to protect the vulnerable, vulnerable families, vulnerable individuals,
Yes.
vulnerable children. And that's why I passed, amendments to the Women's Charter,
Yes.
family violence-related policy initiatives, and so on and so forth, and working with stakeholders, because that to me is extremely important.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think there is that aspect that I do, but there's
Yes.
also another area of work which is more about preschool education,
Yes.
pro-family policies,
Yes.
and that's a little bit, I would say, perhaps more inclusive,
Yes.
more warm.
Yes. 100%.
Yes.
So for yourself, maybe if I'm quite curious, what was one important conversation or important piece of advice that he gave you that helped you in your career?
I wouldn't say specific from him, but there have been others as well, because I work with many ministers in my role. They haven't quite said it the same way,
Yep.
but there were a few takeaways.
Yes.
I think the first one is that one needs to know your work. And it's very clear, because if you go to Parliament and someone asks you a question, and if you don't know the answer,
Yes.
it's live streamed, right?
Yes.
There is no way you can just try to bluff your way through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's something I'm quite particular about, to make sure I understand the ins and outs,
Yes.
consider different perspectives, because you're really answering questions from members of parliament who represent the people,
Yep.
and people can have diverse voices,
Yep.
and they're doing their role, right? They're
Yes.
reflecting those different voices,
Yes.
different perspectives. And
Yes.
so you must be able to have looked at the issue from a variety of angles to be able to explain and hopefully to get buy-in, taking into account all the different perspectives. So you have to know your work. You can't go there to Parliament and think, I think it's roughly like that.
You can't bullshit lah.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So I think the first point is that you must know your work.
Yes.
And I think that doesn't just apply to the political space.
Yes.
I know, whether or not, my former background was in banking. You have to know basically how to work the worksheet, you have to do evaluations.
Yes.
You need to know the bare basics. Then after that, you have to, of course, overlay things like the investment story,
Yeah.
right? And then you have to be able to go on roadshows and to sell that story.
Yes.
So there's a second part of it.
Yes.
But all that, the basic foundation is that you have to know your work.
Yeah.
That's the first point. The second point I would make is that I think, in this political journey, I realized that, and back to what I said earlier, different people have different characteristics.
Yeah.
So some of us, we may be introverts, some might be extroverts. Some people draw energy from others, whereas some feel slightly exhausted
Yes.
with too much talking.
Which are you?
Actually, I'm pretty much an introvert.
Interesting.
Yes, so we could come back to that later.
Okay, sure.
But I had to learn on the job.
Yes.
And where I was coming from is that we have different personal preferences, personal comfort spaces, like what we're comfortable doing, right? And I think it's easier when you work on your strengths and leverage on those strengths, because not everyone's the same,
Yes.
right? So I think that was the other advice I got from people around me,
Yes.
which is, it sounds very cliche, but it's about being yourself, being authentic.
Yes.
Because if you try to be someone you're not,
Yes.
now with social media,
Yes.
it's very clear.
Yes.
You're just trying to be, someone you're not.
Yeah, and it's kind of cringy. The Gen Z will call it cringy because there's something about that inauthenticity that people know that you're trying too hard and it's just not gelling. And I think people are oftentimes very good with sensing there's something off. And in psychology, you call it congruence. It's like if somebody's incongruent, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but I want to come back to your point about knowing the work, doing the work, knowing the numbers. Whenever I see you in Parliament, it is so evident that you were an economist.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's so evident, right? And you come from actually the private sector as well, because even when you stand up in Parliament and you get questions on HDB, the unit rental numbers, and then there are follow-on questions and supplementary questions and all of that, and you always come in, but you do a very special thing, which is I think you make the data tell stories. So not only do you have the data, you're able to crystallize and position and almost pitch data in a way where it's like you're not just answering the question, you're also controlling the narrative and framing it in a way and I think that is actually a very interesting gift that you have. A lot of people may see the kind of warm mother stuff, but I kind of also see the intellectual rigor that
Oh.
you have, the hard work that you put in, and how skillful you are in both combining the competence and the warmth, which, by the way, is the formula for charisma. Charisma, the formula for it is nothing more than warmth plus competence, and that creates trust.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That was a lot to take in. I was just doing my thing. But as I was listening to what you say, there is one thing I do to try to summarize my views and my thoughts about something.
Yes.
Which is I do like to think about things in terms of like a graph or a table.
Yes.
So like sometimes people ask me, we have a lot of policy making is about trade-offs.
Yes.
Right? Should we do A or should we do B? Can we do this better?
Yeah.
But it always comes at a cost.
Right.
Right. So I remember recently there was a discussion about how can we do enforcement better. So and then there were lots of ideas, huge PowerPoint, and then all sorts of things. And then they came up with, I don't know, a couple of 9 recommendations or so, right?
Yes.
And then to me, when I read the PowerPoint, I was like, so what's the framework for us to be able to analyze this and decide what to do and what not to do? So I suggested to the team, I said, actually, the 2 constraints we have is technology and manpower, right? So could you lay out all the things that we have to do on a X and Y axis, one, technology being the Y-axis and manpower the X-axis.
I love that.
And then you put it in as a scatter plot.
Scatter graph, yeah.
Right, scatter plot. And then after that, you draw it to 4 quadrants and you kind of know what is you need to use. There's a lot of technology involved.
Yes.
And you may need to use a lot of manpower.
Yes.
So you kind of put the initiatives into different buckets.
Yes, very McKinsey of you.
Oh, is it? I'm not a consultant by training, but it helps me decide what it is that we should focus on.
Yeah.
And if we focus on something, it means that we can't do something else. Then we might have to go out and explain to the public why we can't do the other thing. Not that it's not important, but because these are the trade-offs that are necessary, that we're going to have to need these conditions before we can do it.
Yeah.
So in my mind, and I use it for, I don't know, urgent and important stuff, just put it up on the axis. And, so that's how I think about things.
That Eisenhower's matrix, right? Urgent and important, not urgent, not important.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the term for it, but that's how in my mind I kind of allocate things.
Yeah. I love that because I am also obsessed with mental models of decision making, and as a policymaker, you must have to make 100, 1,000 decisions all the time, from micro to macro decisions, and sometimes it is also fascinating to see what kind of decision-making models that you use. I guess I want to broaden out the question a little bit.
Okay.
Since we're talking about that. A lot of times people say to me, and this is not about you specifically, but about the government in general, that, they come to consult us. They come and consult us and we give them feedback, right?
Yes.
But a lot of times they feel that the loop wasn't really closed.
Yes.
Yeah, because we came in to give feedback and then it was, but then we don't know what happened with it. And in a corporate world, that happens a lot as well. So I have a lot of public sector people recently that complain to me that, in public sector, firstly, when they're asked to given feedback, one of the big fears is that when they do give feedback, there might be recriminations.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of them have actually given anonymous, said, please don't cite me. When I gave feedback at work or when I gave feedback in a whatever context, what happened after that was my boss or certain stakeholders came to find me and ask them, hey, how can you say this? Or, oh, who said that? Or even sometimes if it's anonymous, they go on a witch hunt and try to find out who said what and all that. So that's one of the dangers, one of the obstacles of giving feedback in Singapore. And I think the second obstacle being I gave feedback and then nothing happened and therefore I'm disheartened.
Yes.
And I will never give feedback again.
Understood.
And so what is your kind of response to these?
Okay, I think 2 main things from what I glimpsed from the question. The first is that we must have a proper channel for which we take in feedback, we discuss, decide whether this is something we do or not, and then close the loop. I think that's the first point you're trying to make.
Yes.
Right. So I think this one is where technology can be helpful. Whether or not you have a chatbot, whether or not you have a better internal housekeeping, you have a certain application that helps you channel the feedback to the right agencies so that the different agencies can decide on what they should do, and there's certain things that they need to do together. And then after that, have a mechanism for which that conclusion is explained to the public.
Yeah.
So that one I think is really about how do you manage that channel properly. And there are a lot of efforts within the whole of government to make that more efficient and to also shorten the turnaround time. I think for many of our residents, they just want to know, like you say, that their feedback has been heard and that it will be acted upon, especially when it's a safety consideration. Right? So that's the first part. How do we close the loop effectively so that people know that their feedback is being heard, right? The second question that you had was with regards to whistleblowing. And I think it's not just for government, any corporate, anywhere, even in the community services, people are sometimes worried about how does this impact me or my family or my children.
I think broader than just whistleblowing, it's just Singaporeans in general, they self-censor a lot. Even though we encourage them to speak up in general about anything. And there's this kind of fear, better not rock the boat. And it's very ingrained in our Asian culture as well. Just don't say lah.
Right. So. I think it's changing because we do hear more people giving feedback, right?
Yes.
That's a fact. But I think it's also because I had this dialogue also with stakeholders, different ministries. They had the same feedback, concern about this and that. And I said, how do we actually present that feedback? Is it constructive? Or is it a complaint session?
Pity party.
With no end game in sight, I'm just going to tell you I'm unhappy, all these bad things happened to me, and worse off, if you were to say, nothing can be done. I just tell you, I know nothing can be done. It's kind of, it's not going to lead to something positive. So I think one of the things that I was sharing, and I was hoping that more of us can also, see how we can, do it collectively, is that how do we position our feedback in a constructive manner? So perhaps step number one, saying this thing has happened. It's not wonderful. We can all agree why this is not ideal, right? And then moving from that, what can we do better? Does it require a systemic change or is it just a local issue, right? And then perhaps present some solutions. I think when feedback is structured in that manner, then obviously there is no reason why a person hearing it, when there are potential solutions proposed, right, that he shouldn't consider it, right? So, but to be honest, there are also situations where residents feel kind of helpless, where they say, I don't have the data, I don't know enough. All I know is that there is a problem, and you're the government. You should solve it.
Yes.
Right? I can understand where they're coming from as well, because it is true, the government, from an individual's perspective, would have more resources than an individual does. And the individual will feel that you have all the data, right? You would know, right, how to do this better, more effectively, more efficiently. So I think it is for the government to look at the feedback, not take it, whoever the officer is receiving it, not take it too personally.
Yes.
Keep the larger vision and objective in mind, which is how do we work with the resident or convey to the resident what we're trying to do about it. The unfortunate thing is that sometimes the proposed solution or the eventual solution that we adopt might not meet the residents' needs a full 100%.
For sure.
Yeah. So then it's up to us to see how we can explain why it's not up to that 100% mark. And we hope for the residents' understanding, patience, and support as we try to do this together.
You hit on a very important point for anyone in a position of leadership, or even I think generally for people, which is like, don't take things personally. And I feel like this is one of the secrets to happiness in the working world. It's like all of us need to develop an extremely thick skin, something I talk a lot about in the leadership world. And because I do feel a lot of Singaporeans write to me and sometimes because I have a weekly AMA and they'll ask me anything sort of thing. Sometimes they say to me, I have a toxic boss. And I say, well, how do you know your boss is toxic? What did they actually do? And then they'll say, oh, my boss criticized me. And I'm like, what words or behavior did you actually observe? But it comes down to a lot. I wouldn't say all of the times there are truly toxic bosses out there, but a lot of the time also, it's people saying things that I personally wouldn't have found offensive, but apparently a lot of people find offensive because for them, they take it personally. I actually wanted to ask you, because as a politician, you're probably the best person to give a masterclass on how not to take things personally. It's one of those things that we're skills that we all need to learn in our personal and corporate life. Like, how do you deal with sometimes when people are upset because you didn't give them the right solution, or sometimes they unfairly blame you for something that that is not your fault.
Like last week, I got blamed for a gentleman who got fined for speeding because he said he used a new road which I constructed in Pongo.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't constructed the road, he wouldn't have used the road and he wouldn't have gotten summoned, you know? So I know how it can sound to an outsider, but what I normally do when I meet these situations is I do realize that when they speak to me, you can tell from their body language and the tone of their voice that they're really very upset and they're in a lot of pain. Many Meet the People sessions are like that. But sometimes when people talk about their pain and their story, it's not entirely coherent.
Yes, of course.
So you have to ask questions and you have to understand it better. And then little bits and pieces will be shared with you. And then you try to put it all together into a comprehensive picture.
Yes.
And then sometimes they might not even know why they have decided to come and see you. They just know something's wrong. You know, she's the cause of it. She did all these things to me, as in me in this instance. I'm going to go and see her and tell her off.
Yeah.
And don't know, maybe she can help me, you know, like that. So you get to a point of conversation where you try to identify what is that problem that he's experiencing right now.
Sounds like you're a combination of a coach and a therapist, almost, because you're like holding space for them. You're doing active listening. You try to be empathic and take on their perspective. And then you're trying to gently direct them into constructive action.
Yes.
It's a lot.
When you summarize it that way, yes, I guess.
Did you always know how to do this? Is it something innate in you, or did you learn these skills somewhere?
I think it helps that I've been doing Meet the People session for a very long time. I started out as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, people, sometimes we choose the things that we do because that is something we want to do, right?
Yes.
So I think I got myself involved in Meet the People session since I was 20 years old because I wanted to listen to people and I wanted to see what it is that I can do to help them, even though I was 20 years old. I didn't understand HDB policies at all, right? I wasn't married yet. And I think over these 25, 26 years, you kind of learn the skills, even the empathy part.
Yeah.
And some of us take it better than others. Yeah. To be honest. I mean, some of us may take a more listening approach, even sometimes become a personal counselor.
Yeah.
So it really depends on, you know, the MP or the representative's personal inclinations.
Yes.
And I think we address it in different ways. We approach the issue in different ways. But I think that how I like to see it is that we all start from a good starting point, which is that we want to be helpful.
Yeah.
But it's just that the way we do it might be different for different people.
Yes. I do believe that for all the criticism that, you know, government ministers have, one of the things that everyone says is indisputable is that you guys work damn hard. Nobody can ever criticize a PAP politician for not working hard.
We try our best.
and having that, you know, courage to step up and serve 100%. But yet at the same time, one thing that continually amazes my audience about you is, where do you get the energy from? So they've cited all these examples of you doing the things that you do. I feel simultaneously for the working mom, or for the mother, I should say, because all moms work, whether it's in the office or at home.
Yes.
I do think that one of the things that they struggle with is this sense of mixed feelings about their own ambition. Yeah. So a lot of times people write to me and they say, look, we are simultaneously inspired by working women, Rachel of Love Bonito, yourself, who are heavily pregnant, still doing the walkabout with the Zika virus. So there's that element of inspiration, yes, but also sometimes there is that undercurrent of, but how come I feel tired? How come these superwomen are out there conquering the world and doing all these great things? And then sometimes they write to me and they say, well, actually, sometimes it also makes me feel a little bad about myself as a mother who's just trying to freaking get through it all. And, you know, so a lot of the questions they asked, which I've compiled here for you today, one theme is, how do you do it as a working mother, juggling the elder care, you know, juggling your being a wife, mother of two, as well as, you know, being blamed for everything under the sun? Where do you find the energy?
Well, I think one that is fair to us all is time. We only have 24 hours.
Yes.
Right. 1 hour spent doing A means 1 hour less doing B.
Yes.
And these are the trade-offs. These are the decisions we have to make every day.
Yes.
For a working mom, whether or not at work or managing household chores. And each and every one of us has a different set of circumstances. So the way I look at it, and I mentioned it earlier, is that I do ask myself, is this something urgent that I have to address now? Is this something important that only I can do and only I can fix?
Yes.
Can I draw support from people around me?
Yes.
Right? And very importantly, don't suffer from FOMO. Because if you're trying to be everywhere all the time, it's just not possible. Right? And we just have to decide that this is what I'm going to do now. And when I'm doing this, I'm going to do it well.
Yes.
I'm going to be present for my children or present for my work. I'm going to give it my 100%. And after I finish doing this, I'm going to move on and do something else. And I'm going to give my 100% as well doing that. And I try, I do suffer from that sometimes, the mother's guilt,
of course.
the self-doubt,
yes.
and so on and so forth. It's unfortunately negative energy. And I think as women, we need to tell ourselves that we should not engage in self-blame. It really doesn't help.
Yes.
Right? If we need help, either we try to do something better ourselves, and if we can't, look for help. Talk to someone about it. Whether it's a friend, whether it's a partner or a spouse, whether it's a sibling or so, I think talking about it helps. But before I do that, I like to make sure that I've covered all bases and I've tried my very best, right? And that's how I guess I try to achieve that in my own life. Yeah.
You've talked about being a good mother, being a good politician, taking care of your constituents. But I'm wondering, what are the rituals, the grounding rituals you have that lets you take time for you, just you?
For a very long time, I haven't been reading books just as a hobby. I've been reading a lot of self-help books or books that are related to my portfolio. And I felt that I needed an outlet, where it's about me time,
yes,
where it's about just doing something that I enjoy. So I'm trying to get an exercise routine. Well, the good thing about walkabouts is that you do walk around a lot, right?
Yes.
Have a good pair of shoes, and it's exercise on the go.
How many thousand steps do you get in?
I don't know. I don't wear a watch, but I think I clock enough,
Yes.
so I don't have to do extra exercise to stay fit, So the regular walkabouts help, whether or not it's just walking around the market, the coffee shops, or doing house visits up and down, so that's one thing. But I do recognize that you also need intense exercises whereby you really, and also strength training, because I'm at that age, I don't know whether you feel it yourself.
Yes.
As women, you worry about if you don't have a strong core, if you fall, osteoporosis, all the other related issues, right? So I think maintaining a basic, I wouldn't say basic, keeping yourself in good health.
Yep.
I think it's important for the longer run, right? And I'm in my late 40s.
Yep.
So I think we're at an age whereby it's either now or never. Because if you don't take care of yourself now, you're not going to be there,
yes,
for the next 2 decades or 3 decades, right? So that's one thing, exercise. And the other thing was just, to me, because I'm a little bit of an introvert, I like my own little reading corner with a book that I picked up. So yesterday when I brought my daughter to bookstore, I picked up 1 or 2 books.
Yep.
These are just fiction, And the reason why I bought it was because a mom was talking to her husband in an adjacent shelf. And she was, when I was on a bus for 1.5 hours, I read this book, throughout.
And
I was like, okay, that sounds like a good book. So, literally that was what happened.
Which book was this?
It's written by a Japanese author, but it's one of those mystery horror kind of things,
okay.
right? So it's a little bit like a cheap thrill. But anyway, if it's only going to take 1.5 hours, I read it in 3 sittings of half hour each. It's a little bit of a pick me up,
right?
So I think little things like that, and it's different for different people. Some to listen to music. I don't. When I drive, I don't listen to music. I need, that's my personal space.
Yeah, sensory rest, we call it. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know the term for it.
Sensory rest, because as introverts, you get overstimulated if you don't have sensory rest. So you actually need this quiet, this bubble of quiet. Just have a little spaciousness mentally.
Yeah. So actually, quiet cars, quiet rooms are important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my way of taking care of my own well-being.
So as an introvert, and as a politician, it's quite an interesting tension. So you have to be in these rooms and give your energy, give of yourself, give your time, give your presence, and then you come home and what do you do? Have a bath and don't talk to me, everyone.
That is unfortunately a complaint from my husband.
Yeah.
He does say like, so what do you do today?
Yeah.
And quite a lot of stuff. Like what? And he'll ask, right? Just a lot of stuff.
You don't have the energy to go into it.
Yes, I just lived I just went through my whole day. I did a lot of stuff. I have to explain to you all the stuff I did.
It's like a debriefing. I don't want to come back and debrief my husband. I already debriefed my boss and all my stakeholders, right?
So he's gotten used to it over the years, right? So you're like, okay, all right, it's her time out time. Okay, I shall go do something else.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's great that you have that understanding and that, he lets you be you and he knows when you need that decompressed time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he has his own decompressed time as well. He has his own books that he wants to read. So he has his own quiet spot and I have my own quiet spot.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a really good support system around you.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the hidden things we don't see of successful women or indeed men is the support system that we have around us. Whether it's helpers, whether it's grandmothers and so forth. I found it quite interesting that you were raised by your grandma. And I was also interested in what was maybe the biggest lesson that she taught you about parenting?
Well, the first thing I think that was the strongest takeaway is that women are very, very strong. So my grandmother wasn't educated. She was a widow at a young age and she has 6 children. She had 6 children and she gave away 1 because of poverty. But she single-handedly raised the rest, the other 5. And she worked in her time. She just did little things. I don't know, like sticking stuff on like matchboxes or something, or little things. So, but she did it, and my mom was like that too. My mom worked all her life, not highly educated as well. Left school mid-teens. Started as a florist, just basic stuff, but kept the family going. So I think there's this amazing thing about women.
Yeah.
I think they do their very best at work, whatever their competencies are. And if they know that they're not at that level, I know there are women who are ambitious, but there are also women who feel that I just want to be a responsible person.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this role well. And it doesn't matter if I do this role for the next 30 years, I'm going to do it well. And I'm going to take care of my children well as well. I don't aspire to a managerial position. I don't expect to become a CEO or something, but I'm going to be a responsible and good person.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself is admirable.
Yeah. I'm hearing from you that you really took away her willpower, that spirit of resilience and that dedication to whatever it was that she was doing.
Yeah.
So another question that you reminded me of is that a lot of viewers have asked, a lot of my community have asked you to speak a little bit about your experience working and thriving in male-dominated environments, all the way from Deutsche Bank to Temasek to now the government. And, it's a fascinating journey from private sector, part of it to public sector. You must have, had to rely on so many things, in terms of your wits and your competencies to deal with, proving yourself. Can you share some tips for women who are struggling in male-dominated environments? How do they thrive?
I'm not sure whether I thrived.
You definitely did. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here.
I think it's important to know what your personal strengths are, what you're comfortable doing.
Yep.
And I also shared about not having FOMO.
Yes.
I think one of those, one of the quickest ways to feel guilty is when you suffer from FOMO. I should have done this, this and that. I should be everywhere at the same time. I think we should try our very hardest to know that if you've decided to do this, and you know that you can do it well, and don't spend your time thinking about the opportunity cost or everything else,
Yes.
Because it's pointless, I think. You only live life once, right? So I think it's to identify your personal strengths, and those personal strengths might be different for women versus men, right? So I think women have, depending on their own personal characteristics, but I think women do have in general a certain set of skills that are perhaps a little different from men, and there is no right or wrong or which is better. It's just that we bring different things to the table, right? And progressive workplace would bring in both of these elements, right? Because nowadays I think it's just, the example I had provided earlier about politics and, meeting residents. There is always a need to listen to diverse voices and try to decide on the policy or program that would best meet the needs of as many people as possible, while recognizing that there are at the margins going to be some people who are not going to benefit from it.
Right.
It's everywhere, right? I mean, if we
Yes.
decide on a certain social welfare scheme, you decide on a certain threshold, a person that doesn't meet those thresholds or is above that threshold,
Yeah.
financially, for example, we may say that, oh, you are actually a little better off than families who are less well off. And that's why this particular subsidy doesn't apply to you. So there will be people at the margins.
Yeah.
And
It
the
feels a
question,
bit arbitrary to them.
yeah. And we do revise those thresholds from time to time. But the question is, whenever we do, the point is that when we do decide and design policy and programs, unfortunately, there will be parameters.
Yeah.
And when there are parameters, it will mean that there are some people who are within and there's
Yes.
some people who are outside.
Yes.
So the question is, how do you communicate that?
Yeah.
Right? So I think whether for men or for women, where we deal with these very complex issues,
Yes.
we have to find, and we have different people with different backgrounds and skills.
Yes.
We have to find different ways of trying to communicate that. Some people are very good in numbers.
Yes.
Add up and tell you why this is not going to be fiscally sustainable in 20 years' time or 40 years' time. Some people explain it that way. And then some people go out in a more empathetic tone.
Yeah.
And say that, well, if you take care of this group of people, it might mean that the elderly are not taken care
Right.
of,
Yes.
and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So we will have to find ways of doing it. So I think men and women approach it perhaps differently, but I think we bring different strengths to the table.
I think like you're also touching on like the ancient Greek principles of logos, ethos, pathos, right? So Aristotle said there's essentially 3 modes of persuasion. There's
Okay.
logos, logic.
Okay.
There's ethos, which is credibility.
Okay.
And pathos, which is emotion. So for
Okay.
instance, it's okay, this is the policy. I can
Yes.
persuade you logically. Look at all the numbers, logos.
Yes.
I can persuade you emotionally. This is going to mean so much to you and, have the emotional appeal of just think or the hope or whatever it is, right?
Yes.
That's that connection. And then there's the credibility piece, which is just, hey, I know best. Trust me. I've done it before, I'm credible. I know how to do this. But I think the best leaders really have that range. They have the range to, it's not a binary thing. And I
Yes.
feel a lot of times people get caught in these false binaries because in the workplace, one thing that I'm very passionate about teaching is actually a great leader has the whole spectrum of energies.
Yes.
And last time we used to call them like masculine versus feminine energy.
Yes.
But I prefer to say go versus flow.
Okay.
Yeah. So masculine or go energy would be driving the agenda, pushing, asserting yourself, like structure, being very clear, clarity, dominance, all of that, right? That's like the more masculine energy. Whereas flow energy is listening.
Okay.
It's holding space.
Okay.
It's actually flexibility. It's actually being able to co-create. It's that collaborative process. And sometimes it's being able to leave space in the
Yes.
agenda for
Yes.
things to emerge.
Yes.
And it's the relational rather than the task. So, in leadership, we always teach that a great leader is not masculine or feminine. I mean, for me, I'm very comfortable in my masculine, and certainly at work, a lot of people have said I have bigger balls than most of the guys that they work with. That's why I'm a female. So I don't like this whole kind of because you're a female, you're like this, because you're a
Yes.
male, you're like this. Because
Yes.
actually, the biggest gift to me in my career was when I learned to embrace the other end of the spectrum. So not
Yes.
just being great at pushing and
Yes.
being assertive, but also being really good at listening.
Right.
And I think for yourself, you're a person who really combines both in that you have the data, you have the intellectual chops, you can synthesize things into first principles and come up with decision making, and be very constructive in your approach. That is all like the so-called masculine energy or go energy. But you're also very, very known amongst your constituents for that warmth and for that spaciousness and for that listening, which I think is really a great example of leadership range, if you will.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I agree with what you said, that we shouldn't just say this is the masculine way of doing things or the masculine skill set and this is the feminine skill set, and that these are binary. I agree with what you have shared. The only thing I would add to that is that I do believe that there is something innate, what you're born with, what you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
what that gives us our personality.
Yeah, totally.
And that might differ. It's not just about
Yeah.
male, female. It's
No,
about
it's your
within
essence.
women, different people have different personalities as well, right? So I think the question for us is how do we, and I find that it's something that you find out about yourself with time.
Yes.
Based on the experiences that come your way,
Yes.
based on the people you meet, the decisions that you make, you slowly develop a sense of self.
Yes.
That gives you your identity.
Yeah.
And I guess, and this is something I hope to discuss with you as well, is when we identify ourselves that this is me, how then do we become comfortable with it?
Yeah.
Because I realize that some people are just not comfortable with themselves and they try to change.
Yeah.
It's not really about authenticity or social media stuff. It's just that they feel that this other model is better somehow, and I'm going to just try
force effort into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Again, I'm all about growth mindset.
Yes.
Right? I believe people can learn. But at the same time, I also do believe that we have different innate personalities and gifts. Yes, that's a word for it.
Yes.
And whether or not we should be spending so much time trying to change those gifts, or we should go with the flow, embrace
you
who
have
we
actually
are.
touched on two of the most important psychological theories. The first being growth mindset.
Yes.
But Carol Dweck's work asserts that we are all born with different gifts and talents, but regardless of where we start off, we can always grow.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not to say that we all start off with the same.
Yes.
Indeed, some of us start off with very high capacity for critical thinking and some of us lower. But the growth mindset is the belief that we can get better.
Yes.
Now, then the second question as an economist, as somebody who's a economist trained, is that then but what should I invest my 100 units of attention and time on? Should I just indiscriminately say just because I can grow, I should then grow these ones that are very low and all of that?
Yes.
That comes to the second theory, which is about the school of positive psychology. Now, this is where we have the godfather of positive psychology, Martin Seligman. And Martin Seligman's work has been on how we can actually grow what we are good at, in other words. So positive psychology asserts that if we have 100 units of effort, right? Let's say that we have 2 or 3 super strengths as a leader.
Yes.
We have 2 or 3 spikes in our leadership profile. Maybe they're empathy, or maybe it is strategic thinking, and then let's say out of these 35 potential strengths that you could have, you have 2 super strengths, right? Should we then try to correct our deficiencies for the lowest levels? Or should we use those units to amplify our biggest 2? So the data suggests that we should definitely amplify our super strengths. However, we should also allot a certain portion of our resources to correcting the biggest spikes downwards that we are deficient in. Right. So it's like, okay, we need to very carefully, as manage our resources so that we don't try to just be like a well-rounded kind of individual, because that is death to any leader. Every leader needs to understand their superpowers and really emphasize and play on them. It's like that Muhammad Ali's kind of like, I don't fear the man that has rehearsed 1,000 punches once. I fear the man that has rehearsed 1 punch 1,000 times, right? Because if you're really, really good at 2 things, 3 things in your leadership, that's going to be your legacy. And people will forgive you 100 sins. But if you don't have anything that people can grok on and really kind of identify, then that's where leaders really flounder. Because then, and I feel that sometimes is a valid criticism of public service as well, because a lot of times I feel in public service, leaders there tend to be very afraid of personal branding or individuation. Okay. They kind of fear, at least from my experience, kind of really standing out on a certain thing. But when we go into this new generation where the younger generation wants authenticity from their leaders, they want to know who they are as humans. We want to see a personality. Otherwise, it might as well be ChatGPT. Why? We want to understand who our leaders are. I think that's where, as you pointed out, we really need to know ourselves.
Yes, and it's not as easy, I guess, as it may sound, because the journey to know ourselves, accept ourselves, and decide on what are the 2-3 strengths and which are the other 33. You did mention 35, right? I don't know.
Well, I'm just using a ballpark because that's what Gallup Strengths Finder, which is kind of based on that. I mean, many of these Strengths Finder or style tools, they have that kind of range. But
I see. Okay. So I was hoping that whether or not it is through the work that politicians do or, the initiatives that we have through our education system or through Skills Future,
Yes.
or through workplace development and so on and so forth, that we continuously give opportunities for our people and our residents to grow. And when I mean grow, is to know themselves better and to understand what each and every one of us are capable of doing and to amplify those strengths you have shared, right? Because in the age of AI, there are going to be so many things that automation and AI is going to be able to replace us at what we do. And if we can't find those super strengths that make us human, then what are we competing based on?
Absolutely.
And it's not just also about competition, but what makes a meaningful life. And I think we truly find purpose, meaning in our lives, when we know who we are, what we stand for, what it is that you want to make a difference in, what you'll be happy doing, and how it benefits the people around you, whether or not it's your family, whether or not it's your school or your community, to decide, what is that area of influence, and if that's the legacy you want to leave behind as a human being, I think. Yeah.
It is very interesting, coming back to positive side. Are you familiar with the PERMA model?
No.
So Prof. Seligman's research suggests that actually a meaningful life or happy life is not just that kind of, happy, meaningless happiness. That not that kind of hedonistic, I'm just going to spend a lot of money and champagne and yachts and the kind of. Actually, research suggests that it's actually these 5 factors. PERMA stands for, firstly, positive emotions. Do you feel a range of positive emotions every day? Even when you come to work, you feel positive emotions. Curiosity, excitement, gratitude, privilege, sense of honor, whatever it is. Positive emotions, are they present? Is engagement. Do you feel engaged in the flow? When you work, right?
Yes.
R stands for relationships. Do you have good relationships? Do you have, a good network of social support and strong connections? M stands for meaning, which is what you talked about, meaning and impact. And A stands for accomplishment. Can you look back at what you've done with a sense of pride? And it's very interesting in my work because Greg and I work with a lot of corporates to measure PERMA and thriving their staff. And we find that, sometimes one will spike in a certain era, but that will carry the others over. So for instance, COVID. In COVID times, we were doing a lot of work with the biopharma leadership sector. And what we found is that positive emotions went down a lot because people were demoralized. It was very hard work, right? And then also a sense of, maybe they couldn't spend so much time on their relationships, so relationships may have gone down slightly. But what really spiked up in the biopharma sector, where we did these studies of, I think it was 6 companies, meaning went up hugely. When the government published that biopharma was essential workers, they were all going to work every day and all of that, they had this sense of pride in what they did, that they're delivering impact. And it was that sense of meaning. And by the way, Google also found out that meaning is one of the most important ingredients of high-performing teams. That sense of meaning can really carry us over when times are hard. And that is why there's another famous quote, which is, I can suffer almost any what as long as I have a why. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very nice. It's a very nice way of summarizing it, I think, what you just said, the very last sentence. And I think it's especially difficult nowadays because I find increasingly even young people, very young people, last time they used to talk about midlife crisis, right? And it became quarter life crisis. And then now it's like teenagers and even young children, about this idea about well-being. And I've come across young children, 8, 9 years old. It's like, what is the meaning of my life? Is it PSLE? Yes, right? And I said, I think meaning, self-identity, it's a journey, you see, and you have to live your life and accept what comes along, because these are experiences that make your life meaningful, and draw certain conclusions so that you are best able to decide on your next mode of action, but also be assured, that you need to let time run its course.
Right.
So I think one of the problems that we have now, and it's a very complicated world, that there is a lot of information that our young people are getting from social media, from all sorts of stuff, right? And they're confused. Because everything is coming in. They may not have a compass or some way of distilling what comes in, whether it's a scatter plot or it's, perhaps not at that age, but a framework. And then because they don't have that framework, they may end up being confused, self-doubting,
Yep.
Suffer from certain feelings of inadequacy.
Yep.
And obviously, if you're feeling so confused, you don't understand the meaning of life or the meaning of your life.
Yes.
And obviously, you're not going to come out being confident.
Yes.
And without confidence, you can't be resilient because you don't know who you are. You don't know what you can do. And I think this is something that all of us as adults, as parents, we have to think about what it is that we can do to encourage the young people around us,
Yep.
To give yourself time, experience that life journey,
Yes.
right? Keep your options open, make certain decisions, but know that at least in Singapore, that there will be opportunities and that there are second chances, third chances. You take, in your view, a wrong fork in the road, you can come back and decide to do something else.
Yeah.
This whole idea of skills future, I think even more importantly than the idea of what skill you receive or you learn is the idea of continuous learning, right? Which is about life.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
Skills future is skills. We look at a person, it's iceberg. And the iceberg has 3 layers. The bit that you see of a person poking out above the surface is the skills, is the behavior. Yeah, but deeper than that, there's 2 other levels. There's the mindset, and then there's the identity. Those are the identity is the deepest core. So for example, you can say to somebody, I'm going to send you for skills training.
Yes.
But they can sit through a class and they can come out and they could have learned nothing, right? And why is that? Is that maybe deeper in the iceberg, they have a mindset, which is that this is not for me. Oh, I'm too old to learn already.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a mindset that sabotages the skills. Or deeper than that, at the core of it, and this is why Greg and I are very passionate about psychology, is because the deepest part of the iceberg is actually identity. How do you develop the identity that I am worthy?
Yes.
I'm worthy of love. I am good enough. And oftentimes these deep limiting beliefs of unworthiness, of core unlovability, all of that, no matter what beliefs we instill or what kind of skills training we send people for, I find that the biggest obstacles are often the internal ones.
Yes.
More dreams die because of doors that we closed in our minds than doors that people slam in our faces, right? And a lot of times that work. How do we actually shift people into more positive ways of being is quite deep.
Yes.
And that is why the world of leadership now, we've never spent so much time in a workplace as in modern generations, right? Nowadays, people look at the boss, the leader, the politician, they look to you guys, authority figures, and they expect you to be their therapist, their coach, their advisor, their best friend, their confidant, and all these things. And it's a very heavy burden for leaders these days because we are walking in territory that we haven't had to occupy before traditionally.
As I was listening to you, I was thinking about the storytelling sessions that I do. When I first started out, it was just very modest, ideas. This was during COVID.
Yeah.
And it was difficult to go out and meet people.
Yeah.
And because in my constituency, there are many young families with young children, I had no way of reaching out to them. And that's why I started storytelling, reading books. And then slowly it started to take on different shades, And why am I mentioning it now? Because firstly, it's actually tremendously helpful to myself, right? Because a lot of children's storybooks, they distill difficult concepts into very easily understood language and sentences. And they have the very cute and lovely illustrations to go with it. And it's so easy to read, right? You can finish a book in 5 to 10 minutes. And I realized that it applies, the lessons from children's books apply to both adults as well as children. And it comes back to this, finding out more about ourselves. I truly believe that in a library, there is a book out there waiting for you to read, where after you read it, you understand a lot more about yourself and you know what to do. But because of our different backgrounds, that book is different for every single person. And I find that this whole process of me looking for books, sharing those stories online, because social media helps to amplify reach, is that I'm hoping that people who tune in will find a book that resonates with them. And that when they find that book with that very simple message, that they are going to develop a sense of, the word you used was, that I am worthy of being loved. I am good enough.
Yes.
Actually underlying a lot of these children's books is this hidden message.
Yes.
That your mommy or daddy loves you unconditionally. That even if you were to fail at doing something, you can try again. The power of yet, for instance. And it's all hidden there, and it's for us, I think, as adults, because we can go out and borrow books and we can share it.
Yes.
And via social media, we can spread and amplify those messages.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping, I think this is what would make me the most happy, that by doing so, the word you used was, people looking for something in their leaders, right? I'm hoping that in a way, if there were a profession, it would be almost like a life coach. If you know what I'm trying to say? It's not me telling you what you should do. Let me read you a book.
Yes.
This could be book number 194, book number 200, one of those books, the 200 books that I've read, or so on and so forth. I'm hoping one book speaks to you, that when you listen to the story, you discover who you are, and you discover that you're the most amazing human being, and that people around you love you, and your parents love you, and you're capable of so many good things in life. Yeah, and that's what I hope to be able to achieve. Yeah,
you're definitely a catalyst for self-discovery. And when you were talking, I was also remembering a book that you read, The Smile Shop. And it was about this boy who loses all his money in the market.
Yes.
And then he only has one coin, and starts off as quite an unfortunate story. Then he goes off in the shop, and it is a smile shop, and then he realizes that a smile is something that he can give, and that he has the agency, and it's about connection and all of that.
Yes.
And I think what you said is so right. Sometimes when you read these children's books, they are already healing.
Yes,
They're
healing.
already healing because they articulate very deep wisdom that sometimes as adults we have strayed away from in the busyness of life, and oftentimes, I say when I'm coaching, oftentimes I say in life, when I'm coaching leaders that, when you have kids, you can climb a mountain, you can have a guru, you can try to learn the biggest lessons in life, but everything that you can learn can be taught by being a parent. And, when you have a child, it's almost as if you are parallel healing two children.
Yes.
One is your actual child, and the other one is
yourself.
you.
Yeah.
Is your inner child. And
Yes.
in a way, when you parent, whatever you project to them or
Yes.
whatever you transfer to them,
Yes.
it has a lot to do with your inner work
Yes.
and that core relationship that you have with your inner child.
Yes.
So a lot of times, for instance, when I see paranoid parents that come in and they're so worried about this and that, and what they're actually doing is that they're projecting
Yeah.
a
Your
lot,
worries.
a lot of when they were
Yeah.
young,
Their failures.
their
Yeah.
failures and all of that on a blank slate.
Yeah.
But they're coming with all this baggage.
Yes.
And I often frustrate them by telling them that that's not where the healing needs to begin.
Yes.
The healing needs to start from you
Yes.
doing your work to forgive yourself for
Yes.
your own failures.
Yes.
Forgive yourself for those lives not taken, paths not taken.
Yeah.
And you said something very beautiful about not having FOMO. Sometimes they talk about ghost ships, which is a beautiful piece of writing. Can't remember the author, I'll put it in the show notes. But really the concept is that in life, we have certain opportunities where key decision points.
Yes.
Do I have a child? Do I have another child?
Yes.
Do I marry this man or do I leave him? Do I take
Yes.
this job overseas or not?
Yes.
And then our lives bifurcate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what actually forms and crystallizes in that moment is a ghost ship that then sails in a different direction with different people on board,
Yes.
right? And this writer, she writes so beautifully that all we can do is that these ghost ships will come by and revisit us. And all we can do is stand at the deck and raise a glass to them as they sail by.
Wow.
And I think of it many times in my life, as well. What would have happened if I stayed in investment banking like you? What would have happened if I, whatever, if I had a child with my husband, my second husband, Greg, instead of not having a child. And these are all decisions that I think that, exacerbated by social media,
Yes.
by that FOMO
Yes.
of us now having an avenue to spy on 100,000 lives. We didn't have this ability before and mentally compare ourselves to 100,000 people who seem to be living the perfect life, but actually it's just a tiny sliver
Yes.
of our lives that we put out there.
Yes.
So I think, when you articulated that, it just kind of made me realize, it was an aha moment for me to realize that you were so at peace with the paths that weren't chosen or the ghost ships that, sail by.
Well, this is something I think we have to constantly remind ourselves because we can't live life forever in regret. There was a book that I read in my teenage years. It's called The Remains of the Day.
Oh, yeah, Kazuo
Ishiguro. Yes, and I loved that book ever since I was young.
Yes.
Because, if you know the story, to cut the long story short, you basically have a butler nearing, this is very old already. And then he thought about all those, like you say, those key decision points when he didn't do something that would have brought him into a different way.
Yeah.
Like he could have married a housekeeper, right?
Yes.
I think that was the story.
Yes.
And he was quite sure that he loved her and then she loved him, but he didn't marry her, and he chose responsibility and duty over so many other things in life, right?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, he was left sitting alone on a bench, right? I think he was crying, and someone came by and basically arrived at the conclusion that you just have to learn and accept, and treasure the remains of the day, and the remains of the day can be very long, For example, we are in our 40s, we still have the next couple of decades, and don't live life with regret. I don't think any of the decisions we made in the past, whether or not they were right or wrong, had made us fundamentally a worse person, unless, to be honest, you have committed some heinous crime, like murdered someone or something, right? But it's just a spectrum. I might have been this if I did that. I might have been that, but it's just a spectrum.
Yeah.
And actually it's all right to be on that spectrum. And I like that example you gave about the ghost ship. Because what you did say was to raise a glass and cheer.
Yeah.
It wasn't weep and, right?
Yes.
It's to celebrate that I have my life.
Yes.
And that was a life I could have had.
Yes.
But it's okay.
Yes.
Let's celebrate all these different
Yes.
opportunities and the people, who have come into our lives. And we should be grateful, I think.
Yes,
for that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I must say, I never expected to speak about so many wide-ranging subjects from sort of economics to psychology and even like life choices. But I think that's something that I really admire about you as a very multifaceted individual. And, I would love to thank you on the behalf of our community for your service to our country, making it a more vibrant place. So I never expected this conversation to take so many different diverse paths into leadership and then into like life choices and psychology. But I've really enjoyed this conversation. So I hope that we get the opportunity to stay in contact and perhaps, keep on dialoguing, especially, passing you all the warm wishes of your constituents who clearly love and appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Krista. I really enjoyed our conversation as well. And after this, I'm going to have to take down a list of all the books and all the psychologists that you have quoted.
I will send you
I'm going to be
reading list.
studying them.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for joining us at Comfort and Grow for this very enlivening and meaningful podcast episode with Senior Minister of State for National Development and Transport, Ms. Xueling. Thanks so much and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.